Hello, dear friends. This is Kardec Radio at 11 p.m. We are here together to nourish our souls. Yes, that's the very reason why we're here. And we are here to talk about one more chapter, which today is chapter 15 from the book Jesus in the Home. This book, Jesus in the Home, was psychographed by Chico Xavier in 1949, published, and the spirit author is Neio Lucio. Neio Lucio. And in this book, what do we find? Unprecedented accounts of encounters between the disciples and the people and the master. Hmm? And why do the good spirits bring this to us? Because we are also following this master. So it's immortalized. So it's as if today he is amongst us telling those stories. Why? For religious purposes? No. For life immortal. Life immortal. Mhm. Today, chapter 15. It's the wise minister. Today we're going to talk about deeds in life, right? We're talking about actions. Interesting enough, in a book that is yet to be fully translated by Amalia Domingo Soler, the Spanish medium writer who became renowned, we have the 15 cases of previous lives, but she wrote a book where those 15 cases came from, a book that has many more real, true cases. That book is titled in Spanish, Hechos que Prueban. In Portuguese, it was translated Reencarnação e Vida. If you know either of those languages, you can Google it. Hechos que Prueban. And I'm going to write it down because I can write it down now. Hechos. Let me see if I can write it down. Hopefully I do. No. I cannot write it down, but hechos que prueban, and okay, I think I can. Hechos que prueban. If I did right, by Amalia Domingo Soler. That's in the Spanish, and in Portuguese, Reencarnação e Vida. So there is a case that she says she was reading the newspapers and she found this short text about a homeless who was found in the streets, dead, and had a lot of money with him. The same night, another woman who was homeless was found dead with a lot of money. And she's like asking her spirit mentor, why? How come they were homeless but they had a lot of money, right? I'll tell you just briefly the behind the scenes of this story. The spirit said to her, whatever they made, they faulted with the divine laws and the human laws. And now they are harvesting what they sowed before. The first one, the spirit is saying to Amalia Domingo Soler, the first one is a homeless man that is begging for help, but in a previous life. He was a priest of a very rich community and rich church. He used to ask for donations all the time, and he used to threaten people with spiritual consequences if they didn't give everything to the church. Well, one day he died, and he has a lot of issues to date with money. Then the lady, the woman with a little fortune, when she was found, she in a previous life was a very beautiful, beautiful woman. And she always dreamt of being richer. So one day she met a man who had a lot of money, but he was much older. And she found a way to be close to him to the point that she convinced him to sign up his will, giving everything to her. She made friends with a physician, and that physician who had poor moral judgment, of course, to say the least, bad character. And he agreed to help her poison this old man, but very slowly, to the point people wouldn't know because he was already sick, and people would just think he was sicker and sicker. But then to make it finish sooner, because she was like really in a rush for, using all that money, she traveled with this old man somewhere else and left him in the streets with nobody. And he had poor memory. Nobody knew. He didn't know what happened. He discarnated. He forgave her, but the end of her life wasn't easy because when she went back home, the family of the old man came after her and took everything from her because it was evident that she did it on purpose. And she died a homeless. She had several reincarnations, and yet in that reincarnation, she still feels like a homeless. Still feels like a homeless. And though she got a lot of money, she doesn't feel like she merits even the use of those coins and the treasure that she acquired in that last life. So, why are we introducing our chapter today with this story? Because we're going to learn that to do the good is the only way out. We cannot deceive anybody. No matter how hard we try. You see in the story that Jesus is going to tell us that people try to deceive the world in ways that is approved by the world. Nowadays, there are countries that if you say, let's go to war, people say, yay, let's go to war. And it's okay. But they're deceiving themselves, saying, oh, this is the right thing because the people want it. But we're talking about the divine laws. How many people at work, they enter the gossip mill? Oh, but everybody does it. If I don't do it, what's going to happen to me? But then that consciousness in our conscience, and at the end of the day, we start accumulating guilt. So the strong stories that we said just to introduce us to the beautiful chapter that Neio Lucio writes about an encounter with the Master. Now we're ready to say hi. So I'm gonna say hi to Lisa Teles. Hello, Lisa Teles. How are you? Carol Correia. How are you? Rihanna. How are you, Rihanna? Estela Godinho. How are you? Lívia Moraes. Thank you, Lívia. We are in touch. Raquel Bakeshi, how are you? Chris Anastasia, how are you, my friend? Sunshine, how are you, Sunshine? Daisy, how are you? Alexandra, big hug to you, Alexandra. Teresa Castro, how are you, Paula? How are you, Paula? Jailton, okay? Yeah, I guess the internet is not the best. It doesn't matter, we'll make it run to our best, right? Dulce, how are you? Alicia Ramos, how are you? Big brother Adilson, how are you? Angelita, Angelita. What a joy, Angelita. Juliana. Welcome, Juliana. Karina Alice. What a joy, Karina. Okay. Célio is here with us too. Big hug to you and the family. Okay. Now we're ready, right? You kept the information on this beautiful account by Amália Domingos Soler. Now we're permeable. Let's call the master. Jesus, come. We need you. Always. And he's saying, I'm always here. You don't notice me, but I am. Thank you. Ready? Chapter 15. The wise minister. Matthew, Matthew, one of the disciples, was talking about, I'm just going to cut short a lot of the terminology because it's from a written book. Maybe it's a little easier. On the mission of those who led the popular masses. He gave specific details about the duties of the administrators and the difficulties of servants. The conversation progressed throughout the course of the evening when Jesus, seeing that the disciples were waiting for a kind word from him, and said, so pause. So what is the topic? Matthew is bringing to everybody bringing about the responsibility of people who are leading the masses, people who are administering, like the priest that we mentioned in Amália Domingos Soler's case. He had responsibility before the community. What did he do? And the difficulties of the servants. And then, of course, the conversation went on and on and on. Jesus, seeing that the disciples were waiting for a kind word from him, he smiled and said, which is quite interesting, because he listened to the disciples, but when he noticed that they were ready for his intervention, he then smiled and said, it's a masterful, and I don't think he calculated it in a cold way, but he's a master of emotional spiritual intelligence. Listened and waited for the moment when people were ready. You see, in every single chapter, he is not this chatterbox talking all the time. Never Neio Lucio describes to us, and the disciples were listening. Rarely he begins a chapter talking about it. Rarely. Often it's about people are talking and he's there. Almost like in a Montessori way. Right? Letting people lead, and then he comes when the student is ready, but with a smile. What kind of a smile? Sarcastic? No. Ironic? No. A smile of course, friendship. A good educator, smiling, of joy, the joy of sharing, right? And he said, there was once a kingdom in whose inner circles there was a large party of adversaries of the governing king. Little by little, the spirit of rebellion grew in certain rebellious families. Observe this. Neio Lucio uses the same term in the same sentence. Rebellious people that come from rebellious families. Observe the pattern. It's not by chance. Yesterday, when we were talking about sarcasm in the previous chapter, we were talking about the rebellious kid inside of us that is not well adapted that needs to defend itself, that needs sometimes to create a mechanism of assaulting others to make feel secure, which is aggressive, right? Sadistic in some ways. Where does that come from? Of course, previous lives, but in this life, if we didn't have a good education, the patterns of the past are perpetuated. So here in this chapter, Neio Lucio brings that awareness to us in between the lines. He brings it from the story of the Master. So Jesus is teaching us rebellion that comes from rebellious families. Assessment question number 1. Is your family a rebellious family? But Vanessa, how do I know? I agree with you. It's not like, wow, straightforward. It depends on the parameters. But let's use one parameter. The opposite of being a peacemaker. That's easy. Then it becomes easier. Is my family a peacemaker family or not? Usually our families are not. But some families are. They raise their children and they prefer always to be at peace with people, to promote peace. Are we such families? If not, we can still decide on being it. So assessment question number 1 today. Is the spirit of rebellion into our families? What do we need to do? Take care of that inner child inside of all of us that is constantly gravitating to attention, constantly finding ways to bump heads with others because we're always projecting the problems from within into the outer world. We don't want to be simplistic here, but just pointing out some mechanisms of the mind that may be in place for us to understand the story that Jesus is telling us. And he says, within a few weeks, an entire province in despair rose up against the king, impeding his actions. So the king then brought a judge and asked this judge to contain the rebelliousness. The judge began writing a huge number of laws, and it didn't change anything. So then the king brought a teacher, and then the teacher, what happened to the teacher? Trying to make impressive speeches didn't change anything. Then the king brought a priest. The priest started cursing those who were contrary to the king and made the situation even worse. Pause. You see, when there is the spirit of rebellion against us, if we try to threaten, it's not going to work. If we try to impose, it's not going to work. What do? Well, the king then brought a general, and because he was sensing danger, says Neio Lucio, but he orchestrated a civil war, and death began to reap countless lives. It was when the king brought a wise person to fill the empty position. This wise man arrived at the palace, did some hard thinking for some time. Observe it. He got into the palace. Let's observe, because Neio Lucio is describing the story told by Jesus. The other ones stayed where they were, but this one entered the palace. Right? Observed, thought about it, and began new activities. But he wrote no laws, no speeches, no censures of the insurgents. He wasted no time on scorn, and he didn't incite any notions of revenge. What did he do? He went, Jesus' words, he went personally to the turbulent region in order to determine what they might need. He saw that there were a lot of people without homes, jobs, education. So he built homes, created workshops, opened roadways, constructed schools, encouraged work and education, fighting bravely with understanding and fraternity against idleness and ignorance. Understanding and fraternity. We often talk about understanding and fraternity, but it requires a personal responsibility. We cannot understand if we don't get closer, if we don't really seek the good. And it's funny because today I stopped by the store with Virginia, and leaving the store, I was, you know, with the shopping cart, and she was inside the shopping cart with everything. And of course, she was seated where children are supposed to be seated, getting closer to my car. And I said, you know, Virginia, the sun is so beautiful. It reminds me of Chico Xavier's words in Emmanuel's book. Seek the good, feel the good, visualize the good. When I said visualize the good, the car next to ours, I've never seen a car like that. It wasn't fancy, but they painted so many flowers, like a garden that was painted throughout that car. I was like, wow, that's what we call visualizing the good. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna paint my car with so many flowers, but it's almost like pinch me. I can't believe it. Like, really, you go after it and it's manifesting. What's the likelihood that it's going to happen in front of our eyes? It was really a teaching moment, right? Teachable moment, because I said, you see, Virginia, we just said visualize the good and look at the car. It looks like a whole lot of good. Flowers on a car. Maybe too girly, right? But it was a funny moment. So visualizing the good, and the good shows up right in front of you. What are the odds having a flowery car in front of you? It was beautiful. It was beautiful. But this man got involved personally. He went seeing what people needed. How often do we do this? Not very often. We're often on our side and we're dwelling with people without knowing that the people are in need of so many things, the basics. Yes, we need to hear more, listen more, meditate more, and he says, be fraternal. Be fraternal. Fraternity is about this brotherly feeling, is when we are equated with a person. Fraternity means we feel alike. We feel we're the same. So we're on the same level. We're not above or below. We're fraternal. And we take action towards the good. Promoting the good. Fraternity is this: when we're promoting this good to those whom we encounter and we feel alike. We don't feel more than they are. We don't feel less. And we don't stay idle. We are actually active. Understanding, it's a very active action. It's not like, yeah, I understand. No, it's like, I feel you. I feel you. But we need to do it with ourselves. Sometimes we are our very own enemies, like the homeless woman that we read from Amalia Domingo Soler's book. She became her own enemy. She couldn't forgive herself. She died homeless. She reincarnated and stayed a homeless and died a homeless again because she couldn't forgive herself. She couldn't forgive her ingratitude, her betrayal, etc. So she became her worst enemy. How many of us are stagnated in our progress in life, have issues, because we don't forgive ourselves? How dare we not forgive ourselves? We need to be fraternal with ourselves and forgive those portions of us in previous lives that were really nonsensical, didn't really know what they were doing. So Jesus then says, it wasn't very long before all the discord in the kingdom disappeared. Aha! Solution to discord, understanding and fraternity. Because the concrete action of the good had eliminated all the mistrust, hardness, and indecision in all of the sick and rebellious minds in the region, Matthew gazed at the Lord in awe, delighted with his ideas of saving kindness. Answering his gaze with a beaming smile, Jesus added in conclusion, observe this, Matthew gazed at the Lord, mesmerized with the beauty of the message, saving kindness. And Jesus replied to that with a beaming smile. Can you imagine yourself? I'm not being innocently enthusiastic about it. It's so profound, this non-verbal exchange. We know in science that the majority of our emotional expression goes through the body. And Neio Lucio, as precious as it is, shares with us these non-verbal exchanges by the Master, the non-verbal lessons that are immortalized. So the disciple is amazed about the solution to the problems. And Jesus replies with a beaming smile. It's amazing. Think about it. Are you amazed about the stories that Jesus tells? Probably he would reply to your amazement with a beaming smile. What is a beaming smile? Picture it. Let us close our eyes right now and feel it. Jesus expressing his joy because we realize it, the beauty of kindness and fraternity and understanding. And he replies with his beaming smile. Let us feel it, absorb it. It's so therapeutic. It's so therapeutic when we can feel, visualize this guided model that God sent us in his complete holistic teaching approach. It's not by chance that he said, I cannot tell you everything, but one day I'll send you the promised consoler, Spiritism, because now we have a full description. We can visualize him, not only hear words, but feel him and feel this true master that is beyond words. The loving expression in his own body language. Okay, so when we study the body language of Jesus, we find out a completely new master. With Spiritism, we find a new master. And he finalizes with a beaming smile, adding in conclusion, hatred can kindle many fires of discord in the world, but no system of salvation will really be worth anything unless it fairly benefits minds that evil or rebelliousness have thrown out of balance. In order for the good to reign, there must be a positive reality in the field of evil, so that a living and pure light may arise to banish the darkness. Of course, that's the reason why our psychiatric system is failing us, because we're yet to develop a positive approach to all the troubles that happen in a sick human mind. In the prisons, we're still failing because we cannot counter that by simply imprisoning people. We need to have the courage to give them what they confiscated from society. We cannot be petty as a society and keep giving nothing or the minimum to those who are impoverished in their mental health, including those who are in prison. So only the Christ-conscious institution will be able to fix it. So it's all on us, wherever we are working, to promote that Christ-conscious approach, even if we don't use the term, but to say, if they are not well, keeping them idle is not going to happen. We need to promote the good. We need them to be doing the good to catapult themselves out of it. And anybody in our homes who is not feeling well, who is feeling depressed, etc., we need to tell them every day, you are a child of God, you're loved, and you know it. Remember, forgive yourself, forgive others. Come on, let's do the gym of the soul. Positive thinking is vital as water for the body, as oxygen for the physical body. We need positive thinking. Positive thinking is a main feature of the true love of God for us. When we think positively and take positive actions, we are in the realm of constructive mental currents, and when we are in that direction, we'll certainly connect with minds that are just alike. Sooner than we imagine, we'll be catapulted out of the destructive mental currents. Don't listen to the voices of rebelliousness. Don't listen to the voices of victimization. Self-pity is very bad for us. Read the book Nosso Lar by André Luiz. Self-pity is considered a mental illness in Spiritism. So what do? We think, not because we're trying to run away from us, but because we're training our muscles to really go to another level, right? So we're training the muscles of our soul. How? By singing the hymns of joy. That's why Jesus came to teach us the good news, saying, come on, we need to do the good. Let's seek the good and observe in any scenario what is good in there. How can I do the good? If others don't do, it's because it's on you to do the good, right? Ride the horse of the good. Do the good, do the good, do the good, and don't stop, because the Master is leading us into this beautiful thing. Tomorrow when we come back, we're going to study chapter 16, which is titled Mutual Help. We're never alone, and because we're never alone, we're going to pray together. Let's stay together. Let's stay together. Right? Let's stay together and pray, helping others. If you're in your home, bring these energies to your family. If you are at work, send these energies to the whole environment. If you're driving and listening, keep your eyes open, but open your heart for the prayer. Let's form this current of I'm gonna say intergalactic. No, it's not a galaxy. It's intercontinental current of light and spread the good. Shall we? All right. Dear God, we're so thankful for you are investing on us tonight. Thank you for bringing Chico Xavier's book, authored by Neio Lucio. The messages, they really train ourselves in unprecedented ways. Thank you for teaching us this way and for empowering us to make choices. And tonight, we reaffirm, we want, yes, you invite us, and we want to feel the good. And you keep inviting us to visualize it, and we want to visualize the good. And you keep inviting us to co-create with you when we say, yes, we want to mold the good with you. After all, the good is all there is. Everything else is just its absence. For now, we don't understand much more than that, but we feel it because it feels good. So thank you. And we pray tonight especially for those who are in the depths of negativity, self-defeat. May, wherever they are, feel your loving embrace, making them feel that they can't quit. Just wait a little longer. There's always new hope for a new day. Thank you, dear God, for the treasure of living, for the treasure of existing, and for this togetherness. With your blessings, we conclude this moment of reflection, therapy for our souls, in your name in love, and so be it. Thank you, John Da Rosa, Claudia Counter. Thank you for joining us too. José Vanderlei. Thank you, friends. Paula. So we hope, right, Rihanna? Thank you, my friend Rudy. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about mutual help. I think it's one of the most precious invitations of God in our lives. We're never alone. Let us keep doing the good wherever we are. Stories by the Master here at Kardec Radio, always nourishing our souls. A big hug to you. Until tomorrow, God willing.